Alright fellas, here we're back in Pokemon Masters, and today we're going to be looking at Fall, Roxanne, and Runerigus here, and giving a little bit of a sync pair overview for them. I'm going to stop doing the direct summon or skip videos. I'm still going to review every single sync pair scout that comes out, and give you an overview of that, sync pair scout, what it's got, what the characters can do, and everything. But I don't think I should necessarily be recommending people to summon or skip based off of, just these characters alone. Because I feel like it really depends on what your playstyle is and what your account specifically needs, or what your characters are and whatnot, and for if you should summon for these characters. I can't really determine that with a summon or skip video. But I feel like it would be better if I just go over the character's kit like I normally do, and then say, hey, this character's got these good abilities that could benefit these characters, or help you out here, and etc. and whatnot. So I feel that would be far better to go over instead of doing a sync pair summon or skip. So yeah, these are probably gonna be called overviews or something for right now. I don't know what to call them. If you have any name ideas, put them down in the comments and whatnot, and I'll consider them and everything else, right? But for now, I'm just gonna do an overview of Roxanne here, telling you her abilities, seeing who she works well with, and etc. So she is a ground tech sync pair with this physical strike EX roll, and is actually quite strong, honestly. Quite a strong sync pair with a lot of good abilities. She's got 610 HP, 191, and 176 in the defenses. Not really the greatest bulk, but honestly, she's definitely got methods to, kind of make up for that. 434 attack, that's very, very good. 241 speed's pretty mediocre. But she does, again, have some ways to mitigate some of these problems. Again, she does release tomorrow, which is nice, right? Obviously, after Phoebe. I don't know why they made Phoebe drop first, because I feel Roxanne would have been far more useful for the battle challenge. But whatever, right? Whatever. And she leaves on November 1st, giving you a little over 2 weeks to go for the sync pair. So, let's look at her abilities here. She's got Sand Tomb, a 2-gauge move for trapping the enemy, as well as X Attack All, which is not only good for buffing her own offenses, but obviously buffing her allies, meaning she's already kind of taking on the role of a support character, and she does that even more with a lot of her abilities here. She's got her Trainer move, which applies move gauge acceleration, as well as buffing her crit by 3 and accuracy of all allies by 2. So she's already buffing accuracy for allies by 2, attack for allies by 4, as well as applying gauge acceleration. So she's already got a lot of support-based abilities here, and obviously being very self-sufficient in her own offensive buffs as well as crit buffs, which is nice. And she's got her Grudgeful Bulldoze, 4-gauge move, 120 base power, hits all enemies. Activation condition is when there is a trapped opponent on the enemy's field of play, and then the deactivation condition is when there's no longer a trapped enemy on the opponent's field of play. It lowers enemy defense by 1 and speed by 1, and raises the defensive speed of all allies by 1. So, essentially, she's able to trap, she buffs allies' attack, she buffs allies' crit, and applies gauge acceleration, as well as buffing her own crit, so she's, again, self-sufficient. And then she's also able to buff allies' defense and speed, and lower enemies' defense and speed AoE. Already very, very good abilities here. The only thing I have a problem with so far is the fact that this is a 4-gauge move, meaning it's going to take you a little bit of time to start ramping up your speed, and you're obviously going to be using a lot of gauge while doing that. That's a very small issue, though, really. And obviously, not much power. Being an AoE move at 120 minimum base power, obviously being 1 out of 5, it's not going to be the hardest hitting move ever, right? So you do got to, keep that in mind. So not going to be super hard hitting on the DPS, but she does have some very good utility and support abilities so far. And her passive skills, she has Sync Move, Team Stat Up, Flip, returns raised stats of all opposing sync pairs besides crit to normal, and then lowers those same stats after using the user's sync move. So you basically use your sync move, hit the enemy, and any stats that they have that are raised, it'll immediately inverse them. This is why the Battle Challenge Round 2 yesterday had the enemies having raised stats. Not only did it, benefit Phoebe because she was able to ignore enemy stat raises, but it also would make it so whenever Roxanne uses her sync move, it will take their +6 attack and make it -6, which is a very good ability, especially combined with the Physical Strike EX roll. If you are a person who likes playing on gimmicks and more of a kind of utility / fun setup, not really straightforward, right? If you want to just hit the enemy and do some fun gimmicky things instead of doing big uber damage, with your sync move or whatever, she's definitely worth the physical strike investment just from this ability alone, meaning you can give the enemy the +3 stat parameters from, the stadium and whatnot. You can use her sync move, hit all enemies because of the physical strike, and it'll take their +3 in all stats and make it -3, which can be very, very good for characters who want to abuse something like power play or whatever else, right? Just having enemy stats be debuffed helps out so many characters, right? Like, obviously, there's the ability like Relentless, I think Overpower is Devastation, whatever, Cakewalk, all these abilities, Power Play, Power Posture, all these abilities benefit from enemies having lowered stats, and Roxanne can do that on her first sync move. So, only thing she really wants is to be able to get to her first sync move, which is not too difficult, right? In her passive skill, she does have the opponent trapped team moves up 2, powers up moves of all allies when attacking an enemy that is trapped. So this is a 20% power buff. This is very, very good as well. Just so you're not only supporting attack, accuracy, gauge acceleration, defense, speed, as well as reversing enemy stats, debuffing enemy defense and speed with this, but you're also able to do this here and buff ally damage just straight up unconditionally by 20% because they have the sand. So I guess, you know, not unconditionally, but you get my point, right? If you're attacking any enemy that is trapped, you will have a 20% power buff just because of Roxanne being on the team. That's essentially like a miniature Masterfair passive, which is honestly just really good right there. And then she's got hit team apply status change 9. When the user inflicts a status change on an opponent with the additional effects of a move, inflicts it on all opposing sync pairs, meaning that you hit the enemy with trap, they are now all trapped. So you don't have to worry about hitting multiple enemies, meaning that your allies are unconditionally doing 20% extra damage no matter what enemy they are targeting. This is a very strong kit, in my opinion. Definitely one of the best utility units I've seen in a while. Just off of, you know, looking at 1 out of 5 alone. Obviously, the grid, you can look at that all you want, but I'd say this is definitely extremely strong. This is very good stuff. If you need a character that can act as a support character, but you don't want them to be a support, which is fair, right? I honestly like running setups where I don't have to have a support sync pair. Roxanne fits the bill. The only thing she can't really buff is special attack or crit, which obviously those are 2 stats you would, you know, want to be buffed, really, but I think for a tech sync pair and everything she can do, that is definitely you know, you can work around that. You've got X attack all for buffing allies attack. You've got accuracy buffs, which aren't the best thing ever, but they are good for characters with like brutal clarity. I think is it brutal clarity? I think so. And, you know, facing someone like Latios to where they, you know, buff their evasion, so you want to be able to have either your accuracy raised or lower their evasion, and, you know, Roxanne provides the former. You could debuff enemy defense and speed AoE, trap AoE, raise all allies defense and speed. You can get an unconditional 20% power buff to your allies. You can negate enemy stat buffs depending on which enemy you attack. Very, very good stuff here. Combine that with the physical strike EX roll, and she's going to be hitting pretty hard, really. This character's stats after the EX are going to be quite insane. So this character, in my opinion, is definitely something very strong. If you're looking for a character that can do a lot of trapping, support abilities, as well as having the gimmicks of debuffing stats, as well as just providing power to your allies, just unconditionally, Roxanne is a very good character for you. She can definitely work very, very well with a lot of characters that can benefit from that. Especially, again, those characters that may have something like Power Posture, Cakewalk, Devastation, Overpower, Hunter's Instinct, these type of abilities that require the enemies to have a specific stat debuff, because Roxanne can flip their stats, right? It's like, again, having the stadium parameter. You just set that, Roxanne sinks, they're gone, right? Especially, again, if you do have the physical strike EX roll. I would say that Roxanne is one of the biggest benefiters of the striker EX roll from the gimmick ability alone, because really, a lot of characters who are very, very good in terms of their physical strike damage don't really need the physical strike EX roll because they already do, you know, good enough damage as it is. It doesn't really matter. But Roxanne, her ability isn't based so much on damage as it is based on utility, and I think that utility ends up being a little bit better than the damage, right? Because you don't really need a lot of characters to do an immense amount of damage, especially to sides, because you can already do that anyway, but taking the stats and just reversing them is a far better ability in terms of the utility than it is actual damage. And not only can, you know, Roxanne be very, very good with her utility, she can do very good damage in the grid, which we will now go over. So, looking at Roxanne in the grid here, 1 out of 5, she doesn't really have anything, just Sand Shelter, and that's about it. 2 out of 5, she does get some more stuff. Sands of Time, Natural Remedy, Move Gauge Refresh, Move NPR, Poke Trap, Unbending. This stuff sucks. I'm just going to tell you right now, this stuff is not really that useful. It's all very, very niche, very, very minor abilities. Not worth the 2 out of 5. But 3 out of 5 is where you do get your best abilities from Roxanne here. She has hit trapped opponent, attack down 9, lowering enemy attack when you are hitting a trapped opponent, meaning not only are you debuffing enemy defense and speed, you are also debuffing attack as well, meaning she's essentially a miniature Suit or Special Costume Stevens, Buddy Lear, right? Thinking about it. So this is a very nice ability, right? You're able to debuff even more stats combined with the stat reversing effect of this ability here, and it's going to be looking very, very nice. I do want to consider that, like, if you are using Roxanne for these utility things, I think the best setup you have with her is to use her trainer move, or X attack all, it doesn't matter which one's first, then use Sand Tomb, trap all enemies, use her sync move, reverse enemy stats, and then go for her Grudgeful Bulldoze, or, buff your attack stats, however you want to do it, right? If you have a support that can buff your attack, don't worry about it, but if you don't, then probably buff your attack more. But then you would go for your Grudgeful Bulldozes, and then while the enemies already have probably -3 in all of their offensive stats, or all of their stats, sorry, you can then debuff their defense and speed, and attack if you have this ability after doing that, and they'll be debuffed even further. Meaning, again, she's a very, very good character for being able to provide stat debuff multipliers for characters who need it. And if you want to go look at characters who need stat debuff parameters, let's just look at Insult to Injury. How about that? Well, let's just do one of them. Insult to Injury. All of these characters have it. If you want to look at another one, Cakewalk. How about that? Another character, another bigger passive skill. A lot more characters have it, and she's even better at debuffing speed because she does it here. So yeah, already helping out a ton of characters with this ability, I'm going to be honest with you. So there's that. She's also got Better Prepared 5 here, which powers up her own moves when none of the enemy stats are raised. Again, this does make it better for if you do have the Physical Strike EX roll. That is why this probably is honestly better for her than a lot of other characters, because it means that you can definitely deal with this and use this to its full effect. 50% power buff on your AoE move here, which is pretty nice, right? Also, by the way, just for those wondering, 6-star EX, Physical Strike EX roll, over 500 attack. I just figured I'd mention that. Anyway, yeah. So let's go ahead and just do that. Okay, so other than that, I'd say the Better Prepared is not a bad ability, but would I pick it up? Maybe, we'll see. She's got Slow Opponent Sync 5 as well. Combine this with her innate multiplier of having the enemy be trapped. That's very, very good. She's also got Sync Power Flux, which is iffy, but you can work around it. It's not a big issue. So you got that as well. You got first sync move stat, no stat up on field, applying the no stat increases on the opponent's field to play after using her sync move for the first time each battle. That's very good, meaning that the enemy's stats will stay debuffed to all absolute hell, and they cannot possibly buff them back pretty much until the end of the battle if you're in a stadium fight, right? Which is absolutely insane. It's a very, very good thing. It's a very strong ability. Good lord. Sure. Okay. I'd say this is probably your best grid for the most part. Man, that sucks. Wow, that sucks. Okay, fair enough, though. But yeah, whatever. So, I guess this would be your full grid for a nuke, but really, I would want to pick up this ability, too, if I could. But other than that, she's got Fierce Entry 2, which it does help. This Fierce Entry 2 ability does kind of help. Because she can obviously, go without having to use one of her X attack alls and just have +4 attack. Or, of course, you can max your attack and have +6. But really, I just wouldn't worry about it. It's not a big ability. It's not something major you need. But she also does have the Mighty Command 9, increasing her physical moves next by 1 when the trainer uses a move. I also wouldn't really worry too much about this. I do think that her absolute strongest abilities are in her nuke as well as her utility. I don't think you should be focusing on the damage of this Grudgeful Bulldoze. Being an AoE move is not at a level already 130 base power is not already going to be insane. Physical moves next can definitely help, it can help remedy it, and obviously having Better Prepared 5 as well can help remedy it. But if we want to look at another character with very high AoE damage, you got this guy. You got this Giovanni here who has 198 power. Not to mention he's got an innate Furious Brawn, as well as I think having an ability here. Something like that. No, okay, no, he's got the Hit the Gas 5. So he's already got 198 base power on his move, as well as an innate Furious Brawn, as well as super effective next and physical moves next. And I'm gonna be honest, bar on type, because he can hit good damage on type. Off type, this move still does not hit hard enough. I'm just being honest. It doesn't hit hard enough in my opinion. So keep that in mind for trying to build for the Grudgeful Bulldoze, which does even worse damage despite having about 40 points higher in the offensive stat. Does not hit much harder, all right? Does not hit much harder, or probably even harder at all. It probably just doesn't, so yeah. Maybe comparable to Giovanni's Earthquake. So again, AoE move here, you got to consider the damage is not going to be that insane. Maybe good for something like Raikou to where you can take out the sides very quickly. But really, I would just build around her nuke and her utility more than anything. Because I do think those are her absolute best traits is her utility. So again, to review, this character can support allies' attack, accuracy, defense, and speed all on her own, as well as AoE trap the enemy, provide a 20% power buff to all allies whenever attacking an enemy that is trapped, which again is very easy to do. She inverses all stat increases of an enemy when she uses her sync move, right? She's also able to debuff defense and speed AoE on the enemy when using her Grudgeful Bulldoze, as well as debuff attack if you have that picked up in the grid, as well as having abilities like her innate multiplier with Trap, Slow Opponent Sync 5, and Sync Power Flux to do some extra sync move damage. So overall, I would say that this Roxanne definitely has amazing abilities as a utility sync pair. The support combined with the debuffing is just very, very strong as a tech sync pair, especially having the EX roll of a physical striker. This can be probably one of the more impactful physical strike roll cake coins, or coins, no, just roll cakes in general compared to other characters. Because again, I don't think characters like, we'll say Ray, need the EX roll of Physical Striker because the damage is already very, very good. He already has very, very good single target damage with the triple arrows, and he's already able to do amazing AoE damage with the triple arrows barrage, meaning that things like the physical strike roll don't provide him too much that he couldn't already do. Akari is a similar case. She can already do very solid damage with the top performer Ceaseless Edge, as well as obviously having all of her abilities and whatnot, so she doesn't need the physical strike stuff either. Blue, it's AoE rebuff. No. Ariana, I would say, is the biggest case of it being beneficial because her nuke is one of the best nukes in the game, meaning you turn your single target decimation into AoE decimation, which is very, very good. But again, I do think that building this more towards a utility character like Roxanne, who already still has a solid nuke, like it's not a bad nuke, it's still pretty good. But I'd say that the benefit of having the stat, reversing on all enemies may be better than just going for a little bit extra damage. But of course, that's always up to you. That's always up to you. And of course, you can just decide to use another striker candy you may get, right? Because do these banners have... I don't remember if Phoebe's banner has the tiered scout rewards or not. I forget. Or not tiered scout rewards, but the roll cake coin rewards like Pokefair banners do. I don't think they do. But still, you can just save up striker candies, use it on who you want, but then eventually give it to Roxanne sometime in the future. But whatever. Whatever, right? I do think that Roxanne has a lot of great abilities and can definitely be very, very beneficial. Works well with, again, any character that has a debuffing required multiplier, especially characters who have things like power play and whatnot. I'm pretty sure if we go to Classic Elisa... Yeah, power play, right? If you have a character that has power play or something and they want stat debuffs, but you also want to do other things with them, you can use Roxanne and her ability here to buff their power play, go to your next sync move, and then boom, your power play is already activated, right? Obviously, a lot of these characters can already do debuffing, but if you want to do faster debuffing, then Roxanne is definitely very, very helpful with that. Obviously, she can help out, Cygnus Cyrus. I don't think he can do too much debuffing. I think this is about the best he got, right? I think this is about the best you have. Bad Break 9 and then Bad Break 1. Leaf, I'm pretty sure she can only really debuff defense, and then she can do other things in here, but you want to go for the nuking stuff, so it may take a little bit. So overall, I do think that having Roxanne here to provide those debuffs for these characters is definitely very, very good. And again, especially other characters, like maybe Wally, for example, who wants to have Cakewalk activated, but you don't really want, you got to have the right allies to do that. Roxanne could potentially be one of those allies, right? So anyway, overall, Roxanne, very strong sync pair. Let me know if you're going to go for her down in the comments below. I'm curious. I do think she's one of the better sync pairs of the month for sure. She's definitely got a lot of nice abilities that are unique to her that can be very, very helpful for a lot of different characters, as well as, just providing use to the player that may pull her. So anyway, yeah, let me know if you're going to summon for her down in the comments below. I'm curious, and if you do pull her, good luck and have some fun with her. I'm just going to be doing daily discounts and whatnot. So yeah, I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed.